Um, let our friends know that we are here. I'm going to see Michael here in about an hour or so from now here in the store.
Ah,
Because it is Wednesday. Greg, we see you here soon, don't we?
yeah, we do coming up. I have to get to my right calendar, but yeah, I'm there usually monthly. Yeah.
Because you were in Vegas and you were showing me all of the fun stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Um, I am at the Friday the 21st, Melissa.
Okay.
August 21st, I'm there. Yeah, Vegas was great. That metaphysical shop, that is incredible. Went to a great haunted location too. There's a video out there called Good Springs, south of Vegas, where I was actually holding a piece of the wreckage from Carol Lombard's plane
Oh, wow.
where she was killed. Yeah, and Clark Gable was there for 3 days in this bar while they were looking for her.
Huh.
That's interesting. Fun
So
history.
what's the name of the haunted location, did you say?
Pioneer Saloon in
Okay.
Good Springs, Nevada.
Pioneer Saloon. All right. If
It's
I'm ever in the area.
literally in the middle of nowhere, 7 miles off of the main road. Great place. Gunshots from right in the wall. And one of my pictures out there has the holes behind me. Picked up on a couple of the spirits there as well. They were able to verify. So it was good.
Hmm.
All right. Well, we have Gregory, Nicholas, and Michael here with us to discuss, maybe even debate. We've got popcorn ready, us three ladies, for these two gentlemen to go over the difference between mediumship and trance or possession. And maybe I don't know if those are really interchangeable as it gets used that way, and that would be a question for Michael. But Greg, you're kind of our tamed guest. You're the one that's like, I just do mediumship. I don't like the trance, the possession, especially.
Hmm.
So, how did you get into your mediumship? And I know you're fourth generation and all that
Right.
fun stuff. But when did you realize
Well,
you were
that
doing?
started again when I was 4, when I saw my great aunt. I was at her funeral. I turned around in the funeral home, and there she was in the corner. And I was with my mother, and I said to mom, I said, Louise is here. She said, yeah, she's right there, meaning laying in the casket. I said, no, she's behind me in the corner. And they was able to verify. In fact, it was so weird. We just got done talking about my trip to Vegas. First time in over 40 years, I saw her grandson, my cousin. It was so weird how we were able to reconnect out there. They live out there. But that's how it started with me. And a lot of times, do I get messages? And this is something Michael and I can discuss too. I'll pick up on their pain. This trip, especially where I was picking up on the pain of the spirits and how they passed. Um, Interesting for me.
Michael, when did you start your journey in with trance possession?
Well, I started interacting with spirits in childhood too, and this is pretty normal for people with these proclivities. There's usually a childhood because it can be a stressful thing for the spirits to mount a person. There's something called the possession crisis that occurs, where the human body will actually initially resist the incoming spirit. During like ceremonies, things like that. But it's inarguable when it starts. But yeah, for me, the spirit interaction began in childhood primarily.
Now, Michael, transpossession, can you expand on exactly what that is? I'm not all that familiar with it, and I'm sure some of our listeners aren't. Is it the same as channeling, or is it completely different? I mean,
No, channeling's primarily a new age practice, and most of the time it's fallacious. A lot of channeling just comes from the person's subconscious mind. And with a lot of so-called channeling, people are pretending to channel messages from like Pleiadians from another star system, and or some deity and things like that. But most of the time, it's just best case scenario is somebody's subconscious mind that they're attuning that they're opening up and is speaking. Worst case scenario, it's just a performative. It's kind of like a parlor trick. But with transpossession, what Greg does and what most mediums do these days originates in Victorian spiritualism, which began with the Fox sisters, um, who started hearing rapping on their communicating with spirits via rapping on their walls. This uh, this eventually led in, developed into a whole movement that was huge during the Victorian age. And a major figure in this movement was Alan Kardec. He wrote the Spirits. He was he was instrumental in this. Like, so most spiritualists have studied Alan Kardec. There's Kardecian spiritualists, um, Kardecian spiritualism, and the Book of the Spirits has rules for interacting with the spirit world. It talks about the spirit world. It has, and traditional Kardecian spiritualist circles will say prayers together and go in a certain systematic way to communicate with the spirits. Kardecian spiritualism also became a big part of the ATRs, Afro diasporic religions such as Voodoo, Sanse, 21 Divisions, Ocha, Santeria, Candomblé, Kimbanda, all of these religions which already had a shamanic spiritualistic element to them. Santo Daime is one that uses ayahuasca. Um, they already had a shamanic element of spirit interaction from the indigenous people that were practicing them, and then through the slave trade, where these people ended up in other places such as the islands, this synthesized with European spiritualism that was manifested in Alan's work, and so it created a synthesis where European Americans.
Oh no, you're breaking up, Michael. You're going kind of digital breakup. I don't. Your connection might be going a little wonky there.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying was the European spiritualism and American spiritualism ended up becoming part of a synthesis with the shamanic indigenous practices that were present among the Africans and Native Americans in the diasporic religions of things like that became candomblé, voodoo, Ochar Santeria, Palo Mayombe, things like that. And so these religions of these indigenous people already had a spiritistic element to them because they were naturally shamanic practices, and so then they were mixed and synthesized with the European and American spiritualism, and this created a very powerful system of complete transpossession, usually utilizing songs, dancing, drumming, and other methods. So, with the full possession in its most complete form, a person literally loses consciousness while a spirit enters into them and displaces their conscious awareness, and the spirit will literally speak through them. And this was happening in in seances in Europe and America. And the issue is, like today, today's no different. For every authentic medium, you have 30 frauds. This isn't, it's kind of like most things in this world, magic, esotericism, witchcraft. You have a lot of people saying they can do something, but is everyone a oil painter? Is everyone a star basketball player? Is everyone a star performer? No. So you have amateurs who mean well, You have naturals who are excel and are gifted, and then you have charlatans who seek to capitalize. And so, it's important to be able to distinguish between people with authentic proficiency, um, people with maybe an affinity, an interest, and maybe some natural skill, and then the people who are putting on parlor tricks for others.
Now, Greg, you've got the natural affinity, but I do want to point out because I saw Kayla, your face go a little like when he talked about the channeling and maybe pretending, because I know you channel, and I'm like, oh, maybe the debate just shifted.
I was like, did you see the steam coming out of my ears a little bit?
Because you channel
Like, yeah, right.
aliens, right?
All sorts of things, yeah. Which I have since I was a little kid, yeah.
So,
but I'm up for a good debate, so it's okay. I get it.
Because Greg, as far as I know, you haven't really pulled in any sort of other beings besides the dead people, right? Unless you're holding on me.
No, you are correct. Pulling in the spirits, those who are gone, now and then, a little bit, some of maybe the angelic side, but anything else, no, I have not. At least let's put it this way, not that I'm aware of. So, no. Mm-mm.
So, Kayla, the channeling.
I'm like, I get thrown into this episode. I thought I was just here for like a referee, but okay.
I think I'm going to shove you in the ring, ma'am.
Thanks.
When it comes for, the channeling of these spirits, like, what would you say to debate Michael back on, like, maybe the pretending or your subconscious? Do you think it could just be picking up what you're getting out of that person?
So,
no, I'm listening.
So when I channel things, so I definitely agree with a lot of that because there are a lot of charlatans and people that say they're channeling things, and a lot of times we sit there and go bullshit. Anyway, when I am channeling things that are not human spirits, right? Usually they come through as frequencies, symbols, that kind of thing for me, and then they like decode who they are with their messages for me, or I just kind of naturally do that. So to me, it just comes through as frequencies, vibrations, different types of ringing in my ear, things like that are then like transferred into. I have to find the way to transfer that into a verbal message for my clients, whether it's for healing, like using it as a healing frequency, or actually a verbal message for them to do. So whether it's like communicating with angels or aliens, that kind of stuff, they all have their own frequency, their tone, their vibration that they come through as, and it's always different from where they're from. So and a lot of times I get irritated with calling them like certain names. Like a lot of the archangels do not like their like pretty forms. They come through as like an ancient form to me, so they don't look like the pretty pictures that people see when they present themselves and give me messages. That it's not a verbal message. It's usually like feels like my eardrums are going to blow out of my head. My eyes feel like they're going to twitch off my face, and then they tell me who they are, show me who they are, but it never looks like the pretty pictures we see.
They don't look like romance covers.
Not at all. They look like they're coming for blood, but they're not. They're still here. Well, they could, I guess, if you really wanted them to, because a lot of them have that history too. But I see them in their very like primitive state, I guess.
So basically what I'm hearing is channeling, you are aware and you are experiencing this and you are seeing symbols and things, whereas transpossession, you're actually losing your consciousness and going into a trance in a way and receiving information. Is that accurate?
I would say that's accurate, but there's different degrees of this. So there's possession, but there's also incorporation. So like there's different levels. Then there's also obsession. So if we want to speak about these things, it's important to be precise. So for instance, when exorcists are working, most people know about like the full on like, crazy possession where this is a negative form of this, of course, but exorcists people are familiar with like when a spirit is full on possessing somebody and they're not in control, and you can tell it's not them. But obsession is a more subtle form where there's a integration with the person's personality. So for instance, people who are foolish enough to work with demons in a magical way will often experience an influence called obsession. It's a lot easier for spirits to influence people this way because they influence them through the ego, they influence them through the subconscious mind, where they are actually possessing the person to a degree, but it's a degree that integrates with the ego in a way that also flatters the ego. So the person believes that a lot of the emotions they're feeling, which are normally foreign, or a lot of the inclinations, desires, and aversions are coming from the foreign influence. So that's obsession. Incorporation is when there's a conscious integration of the transpersonal influence with the personality. So if a person's intentionally like working consciously with a certain spirit, that spirit will kind of blend with their personality, and there will be a sort of a merging or a subtle union between the two consciousnesses. Say like with the during spirit surgery, or you know, say the soul of a doctor who's passed on comes to a medium, moves through the medium, and the soul of this doctor will be mingling with the medium in such a way where then the doctor is addressing people's illnesses and giving advice, examining people. Like this happens in candomblé, which is a Brazilian form of spiritist. It's a spiritist, Brazilian spiritist religion, where a disembodied doctor will come. They'll partially possess the medium, but the medium will also retain a certain amount of awareness. And then they'll literally be examining people like a doctor would, and giving them diagnoses and telling them things to do, telling them medicines to take and things like that. Of course, in America, that wouldn't necessarily fly, but in other countries, things like this happen. So you have possession, you have incorporation, you have obsession, and then there's a third thing called overshadowing. And overshadowing usually occurs in the context of a deity, where you have some truly higher influence, like, you know, something divine, a sacred being, like Sophia, for instance, where this being will overshadow the conscious. Overshadowing is when there's a higher influence that's sort of coming down upon the consciousness of the human being and illuminating it and guiding it and infusing the upper part of the human soul with a transcendental influence that amplifies the highest qualities of the person and grants them inspiration.
Just a little side note. For some reason, not all of the public chats are coming over, so I'm having to go check all these individual tabs. So, hi, Lisa. And if I don't get to your question, it's because I may have missed it in the tabs. Now, we have you two gentlemen doing some separate events in November. Greg, you're doing a seance, and I always call yours like the tame one
Yes.
because it's funny. Like if I had to describe the difference between you and Michael, it's like Greg, you keep spirit over here and you have a conversation. And Michael, I would be like, he invites them kind of to almost sit on his lap and be like, what do you want to say? And so it's like the tame seance and the more, you know, I forget what word we used last Wednesday when we were trying to come up with the name, the like the intercession with spirit. Um, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's more of a comfortability between the two. Um, Now, Greg, when you're doing your seance, why have you chosen to keep spirit kind of like at an arm's length?
That's just my upbringing. The way I was trained over the years with the family, you know, mother and her siblings, be respectful, and yeah, keep it at bay. Don't let it take control. That's just, I mean, maybe that's the very strong Italian heritage. that I was brought up with. It's there. And again, to build on what Kayla and Michael have both said too, maybe a little bit of that too. I do get into the trans work when I feel their pain, literally, or pick up on a smell. This past weekend, I picked up on someone who I was standing right there talking to someone choking. I felt it here. There was a hanging there as well where I was. And it's just a personal thing, Melissa. I choose to keep it at arm's length and not release, or how do I say, open myself too much. Just a fear.
Okay.
I think that's a good point. So like I tend to, especially when I'm dealing with human spirit, like I allow them to come through for that moment so I can feel everything, their thoughts, their feelings, their all of that, right? It comes through you. So I guess that's my choice in a sense. I've also never opened up as far as Michael. Oh, I shouldn't say opened up. I'm open to it. I just choose not to do things that way. I have enough of my own things going on. So I'm kind of like, okay, let me have it. Let me experience it. Stand over here now that I know it, kind of a thing, is how I chose to do it. But I don't know. I mean, maybe there'll be a point in time where I choose to work more the way Michael does. I don't know. I mean, it could be in my future. I think it's like you said, Greg, it's a comfort level of just, I do that. And I also usually spend more time focusing directly on the client. So I work more one-on-one. You both do more like public gathering type things. So I think that also for what I do is more helpful for the situations that I work in to do the one-on-one type work, or even like those clearing things.
Very different.
And,
too. And again, too, most of you, Michael, you really haven't seen me work. We've had several conversations, but a lot of mine are messages from those who have gone, comfort, reassurance, whatever. Kathy, I was fortunate enough to have you present at an event recently that was more along those lines, picking up on things for those present, as well as spirits of the building where we were, which was great too. But for me, again, it's just, I want to say, a fear of opening myself up completely. Not that I'm opposed to it at all, I'm not, but just keeping it at arm's length. I don't need any more health issues to bring me down, and that's my number one fear.
Well,
I should mention too, like I don't do full transpossession publicly, because that requires the structure of an entire temple. You need several people working in a very traditional way in order to make that safe. Otherwise, if you do it on your own, it can be a little bit more dangerous. So usually this is in the context of a temple with several people singing or drumming. It's a ritual protocols you go through so that the protective spirits are there, and they only allow through certain spirits. What I do when I'm doing this involves a sort of trance sleep, almost, you could say. You have to I go into a deeper trance and communicate with the spirits via the trance. I don't allow the spirits to enter my body and fully possess me in a public type of event, because it gets too crazy when you don't know who's coming to the event. You don't know what kind of spirits are there. You don't know what spirits are in the building. You don't know what spirits are going to get curious and wander over, seeing that this is going on. So I don't allow spirits to possess me in a public type event because it's too dangerous.
But I do. Those people. That's the other part of it. So I mean, I've helped with events like that, basically as a monitor, right? For when somebody's under trance, to kind of help maintain other spirits and protection for the group. But I mean, you are responsible for the people that are there for your event, and that has to come before our our work. Safe.
And what you're saying, Michael, actually makes a lot of sense. It just kind of clicked with me when you're talking about taking yourself into that different level and everything, because you had mentioned that you started out with dreaming things where you would get the messages that way. So that makes sense to me that that's the way that you are the most comfortable and the strongest, is by taking yourself to that level of consciousness in order to receive everything. I mean, the way you explained it, it's like, light bulb. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Well,
it might be helpful to also think about how, so spiritualism as we know it today, and I believe Greg is the real deal, so I'm not here
I
to
do too.
debate anybody here. But I am, I do have a considerable amount of general disgust for most gallery readers because most of them are charlatans. Now, when I say this, there's a couple of different ways that they are. Number one, some are well-meaning, but not genuinely communicating with spirits. They're somewhat telepathic and picking up on people's thoughts in the room and these are the better ones. They're picking up on people's mental impressions and then speaking on the mental impressions they're picking up psychically. And, those are the better ones. The worst ones are just doing a parlor trick where they're going, okay, I sense an older man. I sense an older man. He liked to smoke. Oh, he died of cancer. How many people in a room, honestly, how many people in a room is that going to apply to? Oh, there's an older woman here. She was someone's grandmother. She liked to eat chocolate. It gets tedious. I've been around this my whole life. I like the real stuff. But then there's good readers who are actually communicating, and that's called evidential mediumship. And evidential mediumship is based on evidence. And evidence means you're giving real details. You're giving real stuff beyond very general. It's like with tarot readers. There's a lot of tarot readers who don't know the tarot, but they know how to read the person comes in, they look at what the person's dressed like, they look at their age, they listen to their tone of voice, they look for the rings on their hand, they read all the characteristics of the person, quickly make an assumption about their personality traits based upon the evaluation of their appearance, and then they watch the person's responses to the things they're saying and tailor their communication based upon their perception of the person and feed them things in order to please them. I've been reading for 35 years. I've seen this so many times in so many cities. So that's why it's so important for me to be authentic in what I do, to show people that this is real. Now, to go back for a minute, Victorian spiritualism was occurring at the same time as mesmerism. Franz Anton Mesmer created mesmerism or developed mesmerism, which was a science of putting people into trances and usually healing them with what are called magnetic passes and the magnetic gaze. This eventually developed into hypnotism later, which uses other methods such as like language, like I love the show Dark Shadows from the 60s, one of the all-time greatest TV shows ever. And there's a psychologist in it, and she uses a watch, and she hypnotizes people with the watch. You can hypnotize people all these different ways, but hypnosis arose from mesmerism. And so spiritualism and mesmerism developed side by side. And so Victorian spiritualism used a lot of mesmeric techniques to put people in what's called a mesmeric sleep. And so when I communicate with spirits, I will put myself into a mesmeric sleep. And I put people into, I've studied hypnotism most of my life, so I've integrated mesmeric and hypnotic techniques into my communication and into my everyday gestures that were at a point where it's like second nature to me and somewhat unconscious. So I'm always sort of like going in and out of trances and just naturally putting people into trance when I'm around them just through magnetism. Because in esoteric philosophy of that time, everything is magnetic. There's universal magnetism. So the planets have magnetic fields, magnetic auras. Everything that's alive has a magnetic aura that's expresses what's called the astral light. It's connected to the astral plane. And so this type of work uses magnetic force, astral force, and this is the spirits exist on the astral plane, which is the same as the dream world. So when a person leaves their body in an out-of-body experience, they travel to the astral plane, which is why when you leave, if you're able to astrally project, you can interact with spirits of the dead very easily, because you're going to where the spirits of the dead are. That's why in like certain traditions they say the spirits of the dead go to the moon. the sphere of the moon, because the moon is the sphere that rules the astral plane.
Huh.
So
I heard that.
and think of how the moon's magnetic to the tides, how it makes, and it's magnetic to the blood, which is why during full moons people's blood starts to boil and they start acting crazy.
Maybe it helps with POTS. Um, you made a comment a little while ago about reading the room and making generalizations. Greg, I don't know if you and I have talked about this. There's a certain community in a state to the east that people do bus trips to.
Gee,
That
A place that I avoid that's not far from me for this reason.
I
right,
have
no, it is
told
not. Yeah.
Yeah, who you
so many
talking about?
people that I'm like, I have better readers in my store than who live there and do. And one of my employees, just within not this past weekend before, I believe, had planned to be there 2 or 3 days. She cut it short because of being disappointed. And, you know, my example had always been that without fail, at their group demonstration, and I'm avoiding saying anything that might get Goddess Elite sued.
Right.
Beep, beep, beep.
That they will stand up there, and without a doubt, they do things like, I have an older woman grandmother who baked cookies, and I'm like, at some point that is no longer going to work because the generational gaps are going to change. But right now, you can still
she
get
gives you
away,
a rose.
you know, saying that. But here in like 3 more generations, maybe not so much. But
Right.
eh.
No, and yeah, no, I agree. And again, without getting into specifics, I have several clients who have been to, let's just say there's a location also west of us, about 4 hours west of us too, that a lot of people like. But with that, I've heard the same thing about there are, I'm going to say this again, watching what I say, better readers, more accurate readers instead of generic. To your point, Melissa and Michael, I think you touched on this as well too. Okay, someone's sitting there. I have a grandma with her hair pulled back, wearing an apron. Well, who doesn't?
Right.
And how
You
many
know.
times, like, I know Melissa knows this. Like, Greg, we kind of talk in passing when I do events. The reason I stopped doing events is because I just don't have the temperament. I'm pretty calm usually. I cannot stand sitting next to a reader that gives people the same message. Like, I literally just want to like turn and flop them out of their chair. I can't help it. Like, why are you lying to these people? Or why are you giving everybody the same message? Oh, your grandmother's here. She gives you a rose. She's sorry. Or that it's like such like. It's the equivalent of calling customer service and they're just reading the script to you, and it drives me absolutely nuts. And then, like, the meantime, I feel bad for this person. Now I'm picking up messages for that person while I have this person sitting here, and it's just like, I just cannot stand the fakeness because it does ruin the reputation for the rest of us that genuinely care and are doing this because, one, we're natural at it, and two, we want to help people, not just mess with people and take their money.
Yes.
That's why
Yes.
There's
messages from the
another
show.
local reader who we used to do events with that I stopped because when they would do public work, I always heard the same 3 or 4 messages. Somebody's got a low tire, somebody who had a grandma with a rose bush by the front door and they want to give you kisses. What else was it? But it was like the same 2 or 3 messages at every event. And I'm going, fucking really? Because that's a different face.
I don't even accept roses from Spirit.
So, you know, I was like, and we're done doing that.
Hey, question too, Michael too, and this, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this a lot too. Again, Melissa, if I were to open up more to more trans work, one of my biggest concerns is that spirit or entity that I'm communicating with, working with, might then, and this could be my mind just going screw it, jumping into, not into, but affecting other people present, other guests who are there for, and you know, most of you have seen me work, messages of comfort from someone who is gone. Okay, if I bring in something that could be angry, temperamental, whatever, might that affect some of the other guests present?
So typically in trance mediumship, what you work with what's called a control.
Mhm.
And so this is another very traditional element. A control is a spirit that you have a personal relationship with. For most people, it's one of their own dead, but sometimes it's a spirit guide, which are real. You know, people have what's in a spiritismo, which is another part of that sort of family of different spiritualist religions that I mentioned. Um, you know, you have what's called your spiritual court. This is really in all of them, and your spiritual court has, you know, several spirits that walk with you. So some people might have marineros, which are mariners, which are sailors and things. Some people might have Native American spirits. Some people
Mhm.
might have Viking spirits. Some people might have, you know, a doctor. Some might have soldiers. You know, it depends on family. It depends on the nature of the soul. These different spirits help in the soul evolution of the person while they're incarnated. And usually, either from your family or from your spiritual court, when you develop it, this is all necromancy. So everything we're talking about are aspects of necromancy. And, you know, all mediumship is necromancy because it works with the dead. Mediumship is just necromancy light, like a Diet Coke. Um, you know,
Greg, I saw that
Minus
Lieutenant
the
Sounds like
aspartame.
it's a scary word for you, Greg. Necromancy.
you
Well,
know,
no,
but
put that way, but no, it's right too. Talking, it's like I think Kathy, maybe you and I were talking about it too. People confuse paranormal with horror. That's just not accurate. There are horror from people who are alive. Let's face it too. But necromancy, I like the way Michael said it. With whether we are communicating with grandma who came through to say I love you or whatever, or something more darker or whatever. It's still bottom line is necromancy. That's very accurate.
We
because
should talk more
necromancy,
about pet peeves, like
if
our like.
anything, you know, because Manteia is the Greek for, you know, it can mean prophecy, it can mean these
Mhm.
different things. A mantis means a mantis is a prophet, right? So necro is dead, and manteia means prophecy or communication. You know, so necromancy is really a form of the spiritual sciences that deals with interacting with the deceased.
Mhm.
And so, you know, in ceremonial magic, there's forms of necromancy where you evoke the spirit of the dead using uh, magical ceremonies, incenses, things like that. There's different ways to practice necromancy, but it's not necessarily, it's not evil necessarily. It can be
Right.
used like all
I
magic is
agree.
electricity. All of these arts are like electricity. They can be used for good or evil. Negromancy is black, can be considered like, but even there, you know, even their scholars will often, you know, like academic scholars say that didn't even really mean evil magic. It just meant, you know, certain kinds of magic that dealt with underworld themes. But anyway, you have a control, and the control is a spirit that you have a close relationship with, like a mother or a father or a sister or a brother or a grandfather. And one of the foundations of practical necromancy is developing a relationship with the spirit. And this happens usually very naturally as you're evolving your relationship with your spirits. One of them will usually step forth over time and interact with you more frequently and consistently. And so then when you're doing more advanced work, that spirit acts as a buffer, as a mediator for other spirits, and keeps, you know, keeps the bad ones at bay, brings in the spirits that are authentic to communicate. They're, you know, they're almost like standing by your shoulder and going, okay, you come over here. And then they're acting, this is very traditional in these practices.
So it sounds like they are okay, brain just lost the term. The guys at the bar that check your ID and check your ticket and be like, you're allowed, you're not. What do they call it?
Definitely. And that's why I teach a lot of my students that how important it is to keep a shrine for your ancestors in your home, which is a pretty much universal practice among most cultures. You find it in Asia, you find it in Africa, you find it all in among indigenous Europeans. you find this also in Russia and Italy. Ancestor veneration is very helpful because when you have a regular relationship with your ancestral dead, they form a sort of spiritual immune system around you where they're not going to let anything bad come through to you. You have that relationship, they're all around you. And, that's why it's so important to have that shrine in your house, because a lot of magicians will do like warding, and they'll set up, either spell work, or they'll have elementals or different kinds of spirits protecting their home, or magical protections on their home. But if you have a strong ancestor altar, an ancestor shrine in your home, you don't really need that, because your dead are already there, and they're not going to let a damn thing come through your doors without their permission. And so
Greg, I see that smirk. I see that.
I'm kind of a firm believer. I shouldn't say kind of. I'm a very firm believer that like anything that spells, curses, anything that's done can be undone. So when you're using just spell work for your protection, for yourself, for your work, for your house, it can be undone. And usually that kind of actually makes a gateway for people that are natural and good at this. That it's like, oh, that's just a spell. It's like we kind of just brush it, like we just kind of sweep it away fairly easily. Versus the natural things, the higher powers that are supposed to be there, our ancestors, that kind of thing. It's a whole different level than just your intent with the spell work. Don't get me wrong, intent's a good thing, right? We have to have our intentions, and there's like a whole different level to working with those kind of energies versus spells.
Greg, I know you do a whole bunch of prayers and you have talismans. And so, like, before you do your seance, you have your prayers and stuff. And I saw the tightening for some of what Michael said. It's like, you don't need to do all of that if you have your dead around you. How do you feel?
Well, yes and no, similar, because, and those of you who have seen me, I do keep things on the table from my ancestors who are gone. There's a vial of the cemetery dirt from my great-grandmother's grave. It's sitting there. The rosary my mother died holding is sitting there as well. Things like that. It's there, but it also reminds me to bring them in, as well as any of you know, I am a huge advocate of Saint Benedict, patron saint against evil and demons. Always on the table, always on me. Now, does that piece of metal do it? No, it does not. It reminds us to invoke, ask for help. And we all see this too many times. People buy this, setting over there, and I'm protected. No, not really. It comes from here in here. And Melissa, you and I have talked about that many times. Michael's nodding his head. Yeah. To me, they're reminders to ask for help. Your spirit guides, whether it be great grandma or an unfortunate sister who's passed.
Well, whether you're polytheist or monotheist is irrelevant to me. There always needs to start with the highest forces in the universe. I believe in God. I don't believe in God. I know God exists. Like the great Swiss psychologist Carl Jung said, I don't need to believe in God because I know God exists. When you're in these things, you should have at a certain point had an experience that is indisputable of the existence of the divine. And the divine is where everything began, and that's where it ends. And every true rite begins with the sacred, unless, you're an idiot Satanist or something. Like, every true rite starts with God. And any spiritualist circle, if you're talking about Kardecian spiritualism, Espiritismo, Voodoo, whatever, it always starts with the supreme first. It always prays to God. In Haitian Voodoo, it's Bon Dieu, which really comes from the French Bon Dieu, good God, the good God, the true God. We should always start with, and if you're polytheist and identify as a pagan or whatever, that's okay too. It could be, it can be Zeus or whatever. But, different words, different paths, same destination. But without the divine, Nobody should be doing this stuff.
Exactly.
I agree.
Exactly.
Well said.
I was gonna say,
Look at us all
you say
agreeing
you
on
know
something.
God, but you're not gonna say it's only this God, and I think that's important to point out.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And if you get people's past lives, right, they may have been polytheistic in one lifetime and not in another time, or believed in different things through different lifetimes, right? This is here on Earth. So, I mean, that kind of plays into things also. Well, at least in how I see things, sorry. But definitely, you know, being able to work with that for other people's sake, not just your own beliefs, but if your client has like a different belief system through a time.
The Thai are really, the Thailand is a highly spiritistic culture, and they have all kinds of amazing magical practices, spiritualist practices, transpossession, all this stuff, but they're a Buddhist culture. So, you know, the framework is a little different there, but man, Thai magic is amazing, and the spirit magic there and the spiritualism there is incredible. But there you're dealing with it through a Theravada Buddhist framework. So still there are higher forces, higher powers at work, but we're dealing with a different cultural paradigm and a different, so somewhat of a different spiritual system, but you still have the higher forces. Whereas if we were to go to India, you know, it might be in the context of Sanatan Dharma and the different deities of India. Whereas if we go to Polynesia or if we go to the Congo, we're going to experience a different framework, but in every culture, there's a higher force. In every culture, there are higher powers. And those are just absolutely essential before you do any kind of work like this.
Now, a lot of our friends, I'm seeing them on Facebook commenting. For some reason, those comments aren't coming through. So I don't know if that's a Facebook thing or a Riverside thing. But Chris Burke was like, I have so many things to say, because she's also a trans medium, and we will have Chris in September for 2 dates, one for pet mediumship and communication, and then she'll be back with us a couple weeks after that to talk about trans mediumship. So we may reference back and be like, remember when Greg said, remember what Mike said, just to see a third point of view on it. So sorry for Facebook not coming through. If anybody's commented on YouTube, I see absolutely nothing. They do, but for some reason they're not there. However, I can see that people are watching. I just can't see what you're saying. But you two gentlemen, like Mike, you're there every Wednesday. Greg, we get you once or twice a month. You are everywhere. Being all over Ohio and other, like you were just in
by me.
You were in New York before that. So, but we have a couple upcoming events in a couple months. Already August. Seance with you, Greg, at 7 at Mortuary Manor.
Oh, looking forward to it.
You know, the Greg seance, and then we have the Michael, the Greg and Maria Serna seance. And then we have Michael and Calavera later that evening, more of a communication with spirit intercession, a little more of a wild ride, maybe the less tame, I guess, at Mortuary Manor. So I'm curious to see who and what from this funeral home is going to be like, okay, now we can play. Greg and Maria was like, not for you guys. We're here for the clients. I feel like Michael and Sierra is going to let more of the homeland area, the spirits of that area, also come play, as well as whoever is bringing the people with them.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Melissa, remember Wigs for Kids?
Oh, yes.
Yes, we do have, August 24th. Greg and Maria Serna, we have a benefit dinner for the charity Wakes for Kids. It is $80 a ticket. This includes meal and gallery readings. All proceeds are going to go to Wakes for Kids. If you follow mine and Maria Serna's Healer's Corner podcast, we did an interview with one of the higher up gentlemen of this charity. It's amazing what they do for these going through cancer, leukemia, anything that would cause them to lose their hair and feel less than about themselves. But they form fit and they hand stitch, and this piece is for them, and it costs the family absolutely nothing. Unlike a similar charity that doesn't do the justice that Wigs for Kids do. Again,
Exactly.
so we will have raffle baskets like Kathy, you are donating from your bath craze. Kathy's bath craze. Great, Kathy.
I'm
Amazing
also
bath.
donating.
Do you want me to mail you some gift certificates?
Yeah, a couple of certificates for public ghost hunt at OSR, Ohio State Reformatory.
I can mail you some out for me if you want them before I leave. 'Cause I leave next week,
Okay.
so I can
Cool deal.
send me info after this.
Now,
So,
Melissa,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and they are local to the Cleveland area, their home office. So
Yeah.
if you have a ponytail that you're like, I want to donate, you can literally go drop it off to them. If you're driving by and you're like, I want to donate $20, $100, whatever, you can drop it off to them.
Great
It's
cause.
really special. It's really special that this charity exists.
Yes. Now, Melissa, would you mind putting their location or name in the comments so that people can donate? And then the question I was going to ask you is, I had some people that asked if
Yeah, they are in
if they can make a donation, if they cannot attend, but they want to make a donation, where should they do that?
So their website, I do believe on their website, they may have a link. Here we go. It's going under. So if you go to wigsforkids.org, up at the top, there is a donate button. I will put in the wigsforkids.org. I will not put in the button for the donation only because the website link is like a bajillion miles long and it will fill the whole chat screen. So wigsforkids.org, but up in the top right corner is a pink button with a heart that says donate. They are also looking for any stylists who are interested in trained for free to learn how to cut hair properly for children, or to be able to get the hair donation because there is a certain way that it needs to be cut and can be used to make the hair. So cost you nothing. This is actually a charity. So and they need stylists all over. Within the last year and a half, if I remember correctly, like their requests for children in need has like tripled in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So, they need not only hair, but people trained to cut hair, the measurements and everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a great organization.
Great cause. Great cause.
Yes. So next week, who do we have next week? I closed my window looking for wigs for kids. You would think with a bajillion tabs that wouldn't be a problem. August 12th is your friend Joe Kirby.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you got him in this one. Yay.
Well, you asked if you could
like
have
40
the
minutes
12th.
apart.
I'm like,
We don't talk.
so what is Joe again?
Joe he owns Paranormal Oddities in Lancaster. I have to look that up. I can't think of the name of the town right now. So he's a paranormal investigator. He makes his own equipment. He's been doing this for decades. Really nice, down to earth guy. So he runs a shop. Actually, I believe he put on an addition to that. Like I said, I haven't gotten to talk to him, so it'll be good to catch up on all of his things that he's been working on. I believe you've met him, Greg, from Paranormal Oddities.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I've been to his shop. Yes.
So one of these days when you're up here, we're gonna at least connect for lunch or some ice cream. I don't know, something. Let me know.
I'll let you know. Absolutely.
But you're usually within a half an hour of me when you're up here. So.
And then on the 19th, we have somebody from the Beale Manor, whole haunted location. Thank you, Kathy, for lining that up. So,
Great.
Welcome.
and Greg, you know them as well. You like at the beginning of Parapsychon, you're like, you gotta come meet them, and I'm like, Greg, I have a wagon full of totes, and you're momentum, sir.
Yes, I know.
So we have a lot of great guests coming up. And I know, Michael, we have you lined up for the Healer's Corner to talk about healing work that you do in your house. So that's going to be coming up in September. I think we needed to decide still if that was going to be a 1 or 2 parts, because I think you were going to see if your brother could join. So keep an eye out for that. I'm kind of excited for that one. But it's already after 11. Michael, you probably have to start making your way to the store. I've got stuff to do. I'm sure OSR is trying to get a hold of you. Greg, you are like nonstop busy in your readings and locations and everything else. So I'm sure you're antsy, have to get going. And Kayla, you're like me. You're always like, I have something to go do.
Yeah.
So busy, all of us. But thank you for joining, guys. We'll see you guys next week.
My pleasure. Hey, Michael, we'll be in touch. I meet you next week, by the way. I see you next week.
Let's talk soon.
Yes,
I know,
sir.
I was supposed to text you today, I didn't.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Guys.
Bye.